We are blending psychology and spirituality and trying to see how these two can actually help us have a better mental wellness or better mental outcome. That's what we are looking for. And we are doing this because over time there has been a serious rift between psychology and spirituality. But then psychology deals with human beings, spirituality deals with human beings. So when you look at these two disciplines and actually realize they are helping the same human being, then how can we blend the two without splitting a human being, so that we look at you from a psychological perspective, but also still look at you like from a spiritual perspective? And I know in the history of psychology, there are, especially the founders of psychology, Sigmund Freud, one of them, they actually looked at spirituality or religion, if you like. They looked at it like something that was psychosis. Psychosis means it's a mental illness of some sort. That's how they looked at it. Actually, there is a quote here. So religious beliefs and practices have long been thought to have a pathological basis, and psychiatrists over a century have understood them in the light. Religion was considered as a symptom of mental illness. Jean Carcot and Sigmund Freud likened religion with neurosis. DSM-3 portrayed religion negatively by suggesting that religious and spiritual experiences are examples of psychopathology. So this is where I'm beginning my argument today and my sharing today. That our fathers of psychology, one of them being Sigmund Freud, but also Jean, they are saying that psychology and religion and spirituality, they are actually symptoms of psychosis. Now, psychosis or psychopathology basically means mental illnesses. We use that word psychopathology to categorize various mental illnesses. So you hear us from psychology talking about mental illness like depression, like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and all the others, personality disorders, and all that. So what our fathers of psychology are telling us is that when you see someone who is manifesting a sense of depression, someone is manifesting a sense of bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, it's simply because they have been religious. That's what they are trying to tell us. But actually, when you look at it keenly, you come to realize, no, it's not true. Because spirituality is very important in the life of a person. If you look at psychology is trying to tell you, how can you have some sense of meaning? How can you have a concept like hope? How can you have purpose? That is what psychology is trying to help you do. But then, when you look at spirituality is giving you the same thing, but even actually taking you even beyond that. Because psychology depends on the human mind. It goes only up to the human experience. It cannot go past human experiences. But spirituality is able to go all the way to the divine, what we are calling the transcendence. And psychology basically assumes that a human being is only material. The human being is only thought. The human being is only perceptions. But we know clearly that human beings are not only material and perceptions. We know that human beings are also spiritual. They have that tendency of the transcendence. And so you cannot talk of purpose if you're relying on material, because what we call purpose, meaning, and perceptions, all those are immaterial. So why would then psychology want to focus on spiritual concepts whereby it doesn't accept the spirituality itself? So that's why we're here, so that we can try to blend the two. There are some studies actually that have been done. One of the studies that was done by John Talbot from US. This was he says: the importance of spirituality in mental health is now widely accepted. Put it between religion and psychiatry, you realize that it is an essential component that should be studied even in psychiatry. What he's trying to say is that even if you are dealing with psychiatry, you're dealing with psychology, which all deals with the human mind, human behavior, human emotions, that actually you can bring in the concept of spirituality as well. So that once you study spirituality, study psychology, study psychiatry, then you're well disposed to be able to help people and work with people and support them. Because there are people who come to you because they have spiritual problems, and we are taught that as psychologists, you can't just send someone away. If they are experiencing stress, for example, you have to find a way of helping them deal with that stress. If someone is feeling a sense of hopelessness, you have to find a way of helping that person. So if their helplessness and hopelessness is coming from spiritual perspective, then as a psychologist, if you have no concept of spirituality, as a psychiatrist, if you have no concept of spirituality, then you will be able to help the person only as far as you can go, as far as your mind is able to stretch. And therefore, that's why it's very important really to blend these two. And in my own experience, as I've been working with people, supporting them from psychological perspective, I just came to realize I would get to some point and get limited. And so I decided and I said I will study, apart from the psychology that I've done, I said I would study a whole diploma in religious education. So I studied that, but also I realized there was an element that was lacking in what I studied. And so I started studies on spiritual direction. And so I have done spiritual direction with the Jesuit fathers. I think they are the best so far. And that has really been of great help, because that helps me to know how to journey with people from a psychological and spiritual perspective. Now, this does not mean when people come to us, you have to preach to them. This does not mean that when people come to us, you have to just throw Bible verses to them. Not at all. It basically means that you have a sense of spirituality itself, and you're able to journey with people depending on what it is that they're struggling with from the spiritual perspective. And I remember in one instance, there is a lady who came to see me, I think some 3 years ago. And this lady was getting depressed, and she was actually almost committing suicide. And so when I met her, she told me, I don't see the reason of living. And I asked her, what happened to you? And part of what she told me is that she was going through so much, she started having dreams, and these dreams actually would turn out to be true. And I know there are people who really struggle a lot. So today I'm not focusing on dreams. But yes, there are people who dream things and they happen, both good and bad. And so this lady went to one pastor, and one pastor told her that she has a spirit of prophecy. And she was really excited that she's able to see things and they happen. But then the pastor told her, for her to be able to continue practicing that gift and growing that gift, she must be giving the pastor every month this kind of stipend, this amount of money. And so she started giving and giving and giving, and the process she lost her job. When she lost her job, actually after Westgate attack, she didn't know what to do. And the pastor kept on calling and telling her that you must remit your contribution, your monthly contribution. Otherwise, this spiritual gift that you have will start being used by the devil. And you will start now killing people, and you will be like an agent of the enemy. And so this lady was terrified by that. She went to look for another pastor who had come from Uganda. And she went to the pastor, and the pastor told her, no, that's a small problem. All you need to do, I want you to go and buy a tin, the tin lamp. You go and buy the tin, and then you come with it, and then you fill it with the fuel. And then from there, every time I put it on, I will be praying for you. And so this lady at least felt like there was someone who was not asking for money. So when she went there, she of course took the tin lamp and filled it with kerosene or whatever, paraffin, I don't know what it is that they put there. So she took it to the pastor, and then the pastor lit it and then started praying. And after that, the lady was told, you can leave now. As long as it is on, then I won't be praying for you. After like a month, the pastor says you need to send some 500 shillings so that I can buy more fuel or more paraffin for the lamp. And again and again and again. And this lady got to a point that again she couldn't continue to facilitate the process. And so finally the pastor tells her that now what will happen to you, the moment this lamp will go off, then that is the particular day that you will die. So this lady started getting things like accidents and all that. And then now she was at a point that she knew if this lamp goes off, then she would die. So she wanted to kill herself before that. And that's how she came into therapy. I started journeying with her. Now when I looked at that, one of the things that I felt is like we are dealing with two things. We are dealing with perspective, but also we are dealing with psychological. And so I could have as well focused on psychological, which then would mean I altogether block a spiritual perspective. Now, remember our problem was spiritual at the beginning, which led to psychological problem where she wanted to commit suicide. So even if I focused on psychological aspect, I wouldn't have been able to help her. I needed to touch on the area of a spiritual perspective, which I did actually, and it really helped her. So it's important to have these two blended together so that when people come with their experiences, even if they are of spiritual nature, you're able to work with them and support them. Just like, for example, what you saw recently happening in our country, people who are told to fast, and then they get to a place where they are dying in the forest, and they are, we have massive rain here and there. Now, that is a spiritual, definitely, but it is leading to a psychological perspective because this person is being brainwashed. So when you become brainwashed, it means then you are not thinking on your own anymore. You're not relying on the divine help, the Holy Spirit to guide you in your spiritual growth, but you are relying on a mantra, or you're relying on concepts that are being perpetuated by one particular person. And so when someone now experiences such brainwashing, they come for therapy, then you're able to help them from a psychological perspective, but also to help them from a spiritual perspective. Because every intervention that is given to human beings, it must be an intervention that is going to restore the mind of a human being, the body of a human being, the spirit of a human being, which will restore their relationships. You don't just go to someone and they tell you your problem is your neighbor. What are they telling you? Basically, they are telling you that what you need to do is that you need to protect yourself from your neighbor. In other words, you need to create division between you and your neighbor. And that means then socially, you lose support system. Socially, you live with hatred because every time you see this person and you are told they are the ones who are killing you, then the hatred will come. You might even get to a place where you want to revenge. So these are spiritual perspectives that are actually causing psychological problems. That's why we come in, so that together we are able to work with you. So that should we tell you something, someone has told you that the problem is your neighbor, what is the solution? If the solution is to cause division, if the solution is to destroy the relationship that will exist between you and your neighbor, then this person is not helping you. You need to find a way in which you can be helped. And that's why even spirituality, really, someone needs to be reminded. For example, the word of God is very clear that the one in me is greater than the one in the world. What does that mean? It means clearly that even if it's my neighbor who is bewitching me or doing whatever they are doing, I don't have to hate my neighbor. What I need is to protect myself spiritually and to know that literally the one in me is greater than the one in the world. So that is very essential. These are areas that we need to really be aware of in the process. And so if someone comes to therapy with that kind of challenge, we need to find a way of helping them. We cannot send them away. We need to find them. And that's why we are trying to blend the two so that we can work with people and support them. Science has shown that through suffering, we can deepen our spiritual awareness to a more awoken understanding of life. So some studies have been done. Initially, of course, we're trying to fight spirituality in psychology. But then studies have been done in the US, in the UK, and in Africa as well, that show actually that when someone has gone through a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, this actually can reawaken them into spiritual perspectives. And we see this even from the Bible. When we look at the prodigal son, what happened to the prodigal son? The prodigal son went out, he suffered so much, and finally his spiritual belonging was awakened. We see this also happening with Job. He suffered so much, even though he was a faithful man in the process. But towards the end of his experience with God, he says, I only knew God through hearsay, but now I have met him, I have experienced him, I have seen his wonders. So that means through suffering, you can actually come to God. So psychology, if you come with suffering, psychology might only focus on helping you to mitigate those sufferings. But when you come to spirituality, you are supposed to be helped to find meaning. That's why Jesus Christ, when he was born so that he can come and bring sense of meaning to human suffering. And so that's why then we need to blend actually the psychology and the spirituality. So we'll take a very short break, and then after the break, I will continue again with the topic.